we need to talk about the party dialogue system in Baldur's Gate 3. No intro like I usually do, because we need to talk about this right now. I've read this sentiment on the Steam forums, which I disagree with immensely, that the companions in BG3 suck, that they are bad characters, and that they are inferior in every way to what was in BG1 and 2. Again, I pretty much don't agree with this at all. The party members of BG3 are fully fledged, fully developed, three-dimensional characters that rival the likes of my favorite narrative CRPGs, Dragon Age Origins and KOTOR 2. But it did get me thinking, how would someone that isn't trolling come to this conclusion? And the answer is quite simple. There is an issue at BG3, and that issue is that the party dialogue system is aggressively terrible. Not the companions themselves. Players aren't getting to know these characters, because the game is fighting them at every turn to prevent them from doing so. There was a Will scene that I hadn't seen until I started recording footage for this video, and when I say that, I don't mean it in a, wow, cool, I picked a different option from usual, and it resulted in a new scene, this game has incredible replay value way. I mean it in a, wow, the party conversation system is so terrible that it actively stops me from learning about and enjoying these characters kind of way. Now, some of this is feedback I and several others have given in the past, but I'll be framing the topic in a different way, and hopefully explain why fixing these should be near the top of the fixes priority list, right up there with the reaction system. The first issue is that the party doesn't chime in on conversations enough, and when they do, they usually do so only one at a time. As a result, it doesn't really feel like we are a party. Instead, it feels like it's just you and some random person nearby decided to chime in. Eavesdropping is rude, you know, Shadowheart.
Something tells me I know what you two were talking about.
This is especially frustrating because the tutorial in Avernus clearly shows that the game can handle multiple characters perking up.
Warding runes. You feel them drawing energy from the console near to the pod.
Are you satisfied? We need to go.
Leave the one. The one.
We are going to use the Astarian recruitment scene as an example. In normal gameplay, Astarian will address the other party members while he restrains you, provided he succeeds in restraining you. But only one of the potential 2 to 3 characters will actually respond. To illustrate my point of what this should be like, I have tried to edit both Shadowheart and Gale's responses seamlessly.
I was hoping for a kind soul. Well, not to worry. Shh. Not a word. Let's try to keep that lovely neck of yours in one piece. Hmm? And you, keep your distance. No need for this to get messy.
Couldn't agree more. But if you use that knife, I will incinerate you.
And your friend with me? Hardly.
I need him alive. Stow that blade, or I'll show you just how messy things can get.
Ah, promises, promises. But I have other business, I'm afraid. Now, I saw you on the ship, didn't I? Nod?
I really enjoy both responses. Shadowheart, at this moment in time, sees you as a tool. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Your interests align with hers, so she's willing to go to bat for you. Gale's response is very casual, and at points jovial. He says it with a warm smile, but you can also tell he means that death threat. Gale's a character that likes to conceal what he's actually feeling with humor or embellishment. But every once in a while, his mask cracks, and you can tell how he really feels. The next issue with the party dialogue system is the exclamation mark conversations. For one thing, these things are incredibly hard to see at times. I've seen several Let's Plays of both BG3 and DOS 2 that missed several of these, either because they couldn't see the mark, or because the window to talk to them ended before they got a chance to. BG3, however, introduces a new issue that DOS 2 didn't have, and that is exclamation mark priority. If X character is in the party at a Y event, their exclamation mark will take priority over the others, and usually they are mutually exclusive, like this one after you resolve the fight with Zevlor and Eredin. In past patches, there was a conversation with Shadowheart where you could get or lose approval with characters, but I couldn't get it to trigger this time around. Just Gale and Astarians, which I didn't even know existed until I started recording footage for this video. And neither of these conversations led to approval opportunities. Again, the game can clearly handle letting the player have all these conversations, because I got both Astarians and Gale's after the Nettie dialogue boss. This conversation with Gale, where he completely drops the mask due to how angry he is, solidified him as my favorite character in the game, and I'll likely never romance anyone else because of it. Sorry, Halson. The third issue is something I didn't bother getting footage for, because many in the community have talked about this issue a lot, and it would take ages to record the issue, and this video is going to be long enough as is. The issue is Camp Priority. The camp is essentially the hub or home base of BG3. Like KOTOR 1 and 2's Ebonhawk or Dragon Age Origins campsite, this is where the brunt of party conversations happen. But in those games, when you meet the prerequisite for a new scene or a new conversation line, you can just play the scene or have the conversation. In BG3, you get one scene per visit to the camp. Then you have to leave camp, long rest again, get one scene, again, rinse, repeat. Sometimes this doesn't even work, because the game arbitrarily decides you need to fast travel to another point on the map before it'll let you have another conversation. You know how there were so many complaints about not being able to romance Gale in previous patches? This issue is why. And much like the other problems, it desperately needs to be fixed. In truth, part of the reason I didn't want to record footage of this issue is that even though I have the game installed on my SSD, it still takes like a minute plus to load into Act 1. Avernus does not have this issue on my machine. A save and quick load there is only about 5 to 10 seconds. If I had to guess, Act 1 takes as long as it does to load because it's loading in significantly more than it realistically should need to at one time. But performance is something that will be fixed closer to when the game is feature complete, and this is not the focus of the video. The final issue we are about to discuss is arguably the worst of them all, or at least as bad as the previous issue. I say this because at least if you have an understanding of what's happening with the previous issue, you could theoretically be able to see every scene on one save file. However, with this one, there is no such luck. This is a problem I've talked about on this channel before, but I didn't realize just how bad it was until I started recording footage for this video in an attempt to understand why someone wouldn't like the companions. This went from a, oh, that's really annoying, I hope it's fixed by launch, to, oh, this actively makes the game a worse experience. Whoever you talk to first at camp, you get a full scene with, always. The person you talk to second, maybe it'll be the same. Or maybe it'll be a worse version of the conversation you could have had if you talked to them first. Sometimes, it's not even a conversation. Sometimes they just talk at you, and you don't get to respond ever. Or worse, it's vapid nonsense.
Do you mind? I'm brooding.
That adds nothing to the narrative, the characterization, and just wastes the player's time. The only reason I could conceive of for them potentially, intentionally doing it this way is pacing. Larian doesn't want you to be spending too much time talking or too much time fighting. Pacing is, after all, a very important part of any form of media. However, when a person plays a CRPG, they accept that they will be spending an hour in KOTOR 2 on the spaceship just talking to their friends. And they'll enjoy every second of it. That they'll walk into the Dragon Age Origins campsite and talk to Alistair Morgan and the gang for 40 minutes. there are other ways to improve the game's pacing without damaging the narrative. Give the player the option to increase their movement speed in the options menu. Keep attack animations short or on the shorter side, and allow the player to skip attack animations. You guys already have a skip button for cutscenes, which many RPGs, even the greats like Final Fantasy VI, don't have. If the player for some reason doesn't want to talk to their companions, for whatever reason, they can simply choose not to do so. There's nothing stopping the player from just deciding to go back to adventuring, so there's no reason to truncate these scenes in this way. In fact, in the aforementioned games, if a scene doesn't happen automatically, that conversation can still be had at a later date if you leave the base and come back. No such luck in BG3. Either have the conversation now, or lose it forever. The game's narrative pacing would be improved by simply leaving this aspect of the game in the hands of the player, like other CRPGs. To illustrate my point, I'm going to play all the scenes from the first long rest where you don't talk to a character first, back to back, with the exception of Will's, who I'm not certain can even be a part of this camp scene because it'll go away after you get far enough into the grove.
A monster forms inside us, yet you waste time with idle chatter. Do you suppose the parasites inside us dare to rest? That the Geich do not still pursue us with each peal of the bell? Take your rest. I will stand watch. Should a single tentacle split your skull, I will not hesitate to end you.
Do you mind? I'm brooding.
What were you two talking about? You and that Gith Yankee. I see. I'd be careful with Lae'zel. I was merely making an observation. You seem reliable. I think you know how important it is that we find someone who can cure us. Best if we focus on that. Caution is a luxury we don't have. Let's rest and wake up at first light.
Go to hell. Ha! You're a good sport. Go to hell. An everyday expression. So trivial it's almost meaningless. But we've seen hell. It's real. And it isn't trivial. Merely contemplating. Devils, dragons, mind flayers. They used to be abstracts. Pictures on a piece of paper. What a difference a day makes. Now we have tadpoles slithering through our heads like carnivorous feti. That's not abstract. This ballet of flames invites reflection. But you're right. Let's be up with the lark. Find a healer before the wee one gets hungry.
Notice how, with the exception of Gale, who will always have this speech if you camp early on, and Shadowheart, whose conversation isn't all that different, we got nothing of substance out of Astarion, and nothing out of Lae'zel. Now I'm going to edit together what this camp experience should have been like for a first-time player.
What path lies before me?
A monster forms inside us, and you think to be idle. I knew your kind to be fragile, but I didn't foresee the severity. Be quick about your rest. We must locate a creche. doubt me. I do not trust a common healer to extract a Geich tadpole without killing its host. At a creche, a gust still may cleanse us. Safely. Take your rest. I will stand watch. Should a single tentacle split your skull, I will not hesitate to end you.
I should speak up.
What were you two talking about? You and that Gith Yankee. I see. I'd be careful with Lae'zel. I was merely making an observation. You strike me as the reliable sort. But are you sure this is a good idea? There are lit fuses in our heads. Sooner or later, they're going to blow. Each hour that passes, the thing inside us grows. We need to find a healer. Let's wake up at first light. Maybe we'll get lucky. We're overdue some good fortune. Rest well. We'll need our strength.
So, we're resting here. Turning in for the night. I suppose. I'm not really sure what I expected, really. This is all a little new. The night normally means bustling streets, bursting taverns. Curling up in the dirt and resting is, a little novel. I'll be awake a while yet. Today has been a lot. I need some time to think things through. To process this. You sleep. I'll keep watch. The pleasure is all mine. Sweet dreams.
Go to hell. Ha! You're a good sport. Go to hell. An everyday expression. So trivial it's almost meaningless. But we've seen hell. It's real. And it isn't trivial. Merely contemplating. Devils, dragons, mind flayers. They used to be abstracts. Pictures on a piece of paper. What a difference a day makes. Now we have tadpoles slithering through our heads like carnivorous feti. That's not abstract. This ballet of flames invites reflection. But you're right. Let's be up with the lark. Find a healer before the wee one gets hungry.
This is not the world you know. Rest feels impossible, no matter how heavy your eyes become. Every time they flicker shut, the tadpole seems to twitch behind them. Dragons, Gith, and the hells themselves have come after you. Yet it is this creature that lingers in your skull. you focus on that spot of pain from when it slipped behind your eye to where it now lurks, you cannot prod it, but you can make it clear that you are watching. What is there to fear when it is the one stuck inside you? It is a minor victory, but enough to soothe you to sleep.
Where are you?
By talking to Lae'zel first, we get a good explanation for why she wouldn't want to go to a healer like the others, and her reasoning is sound from her perspective, and at least partially proven correct if you try to get Nettie to heal you. This is actually a scene I don't think I've gotten before, so Lae'zel always came off as completely unreasonable and annoying with her single-minded devotion to the Gith cause. And I know I'm not the only person that had that opinion of her, because I've seen that sentiment so much. We also learn a tiny bit about, or at least her perspective on Gith technology, which again, we don't get if she isn't talked to first. I combine the two Shadowheart scenes together because of how similar they are. The main difference is the tone of the conversation between the two, and how if you talk to her second, it focuses on her dislike of Lae'zel, which I believe is an important aspect of her character, but can happen by other means. Talking to Astrarian first gives us a bit more of his perspective on the situation. He doesn't really know what he's doing, and it's Astrarian at his least smarmy or flippant. He's intrigued by the prospect of being an adventurer on the run, but he's still wary of all that's happened and going to happen, which helps contrast his later scenes where he's more bold and hedonistic. Not getting a scene like this early on, or other scenes like it, will give the player the impression that Astrarian is just the typical chaotic evil party member with no nuance, which again hurts the player's perception of the characters. Again, this is why this party conversation system needs to be changed, because if you're me and you talk to Astrarian last, all you get is,
Do you mind? I'm brooding.
which sucks and tells you nothing about Astrarian. I've saved Gale for last because while you can't miss the scene by talking to him last, you can miss it by not camping soon enough, which is a shame because it's one of the earliest moments in the game where we see a bit of the real Gale. When you strip away all the sass, the intellect, confidence, and charm, who is he under the mask? A man who has had a bit too much time to think about what he's done, how he's got here, and where he's going. And thinking about it all has left him a husk of who he once was. It's a great scene, and it's a shame it's so easily missable, especially since the narrative, at least early on, dissuades you from long resting because of the tadpole threat. Again, hopefully all of this system can be changed a patch or two down the line. You're maybe thinking, well, the truncated scenes weren't good, but they weren't the worst thing in the world. There are other scenes in the game that can make up for the information lost. You know what? Fair. Because the actual worst is what I'm about to show you in a second. Here's all the scenes you have with your companions after you meet your dream lover for the first time, but you talk to that character third or last.
Good morning. And it truly is, isn't it? A very, very good morning. There's a glow about you, about everyone here. We all feel startlingly well. And yet there's a certain look in people's eyes. The far-off distance of a haunting. What I saw surpassed the vivid. The voice was too true, the touch too tantalizing. I can tell you felt the same. It was an expert, this apparition. First the seduction, then the spurning, then that teasing souvenir. You're not ready. I will return when you are. That's what I was promised. We have some restless nights ahead of us.
Something tells me I know what you two were talking about. Both feeling better than you did last night, yes? Not even just that. I awoke with new, I don't know, powers. It was the same for you, wasn't it? The good health, the power, the dreams. I don't need to worm my way into your thoughts to know that. It's all over your face. So did I. I dreamt of someone I'm very attracted to. There was a promise of power. I had exactly the same dream when aboard the Mind Flayer ship. I rebuffed the advances, of course. If it happens again, try to resist. We can't take anything for granted, especially when it's to do with what's going on up here.
Well, look at you. Fit as a fox and twice as eager. I feel it too. Not just renewed, but improved. New talents aching for release.
Having fun telling everyone about your naughty little dreams, are you? I had the same dream, of course. Very... enticing.
My blood is cleansed. My muscles still. I have been shown new might to tug foe and fiend into reach. Damn it all.
Notice how we learn very little about each individual character, or in most cases, literally nothing. The scenes may as well not be there, because they all virtually said the same thing. And I'm going to edit together what a player should be experiencing in this scene. You'll notice a massive difference.
Good morning. And it truly is, isn't it? A very, very good morning. Do you feel as chipper as I do? The night brings counsel, so the saying goes. But last night had quite a bit more in store, wouldn't you agree? How's that for feeling better? Remarkable. Or perhaps we should call it suspicious. There's a glow about you, no doubt about me too. We feel startlingly well. And yet there's a certain look in your eyes, the far-off distance of a haunting. Which begs yet another question. Did you too have such puzzling dreams? Same here. Perhaps. The jury's still out. What I saw surpassed the vivid. The voice was too true, the touch too tantalizing. I can tell you felt the same. Sought out in a night by... what? An illusion? Or a promise? All too apt an analogy. Let's agree that at the very least, there was the lure of a promise. The touch, the kiss, the everything. Did you relent or resist? I relented. It felt impossible not to. It was an expert, this apparition. First the seduction, then the spurning, then that teasing souvenir. You're not ready. I will return when you are. That's what I was promised. We have some restless nights ahead of us.
Something tells me I know what you two were talking about. Both feeling better than you did last night, yes? I feel much better than I did yesterday. Amazing what a night's sleep can do, isn't it? Not even just that. I awoke with new... I don't know... powers. It was the same for you, wasn't it? The good health, the power, the dreams. It's all right. You can trust me. Tell me what you saw, what you felt. Yes, like someone or something gifted it to us, whether we want it or not. What was your visitor like? The one who came to you in your dream? Different from mine in some ways, but the same in all the senses that matter. I dreamt of someone I'm very attracted to. There was a promise of power. I had exactly the same dream when aboard the Mind Flayer ship. Don't you think that's suspicious? I'm glad we're of the same mind. If this happens again, let me know. We can't take anything for granted, especially when it's to do with what's going on up here.
Something's on my mind.
Well, hello. Feeling better, are we? I certainly am. This morning I find myself free of pain and with a new trick. A new power. Last night, the risk of transformation. It all feels like some terrible dream now. You too? What did you see? Yes, of course. So did I, as it happens. It was delightful.
The blank look, the flat voice. He's holding something back.
I dreamt of him. My old master, Cazador. It was not. We don't need to talk about it.
You try to connect, to let him know he's not alone.
No, I don't need your pity. I don't need anything from you. Go back to your wet dreams and leave me be.
My blood is cleansed, my muscles still. I have been shown new might to tug foe and fiend into reach. Damn it all!
Your gazes meet, and memories of last night's dream course through you.
The dream. You resisted. Impressive. First, the tadpole sickens you. Next, it entices you with a cure. That you refused it tells me you've more courage than I considered. Yes, and I knew her for the poison she was. The geich will lead you to fire and convince you it's honey. You will gorge yourself even as it burns. It will call to you again. You must always resist. Very well. Your resistance proved your integrity. It was Vlaakith that came to me. My own queen. I am no stranger to wanting. My life is defined by what I've yet to possess. I do not yet call the astral sea home. I do not yet bathe in my queen's blessing. She said only one word while I dreamt. Chirki, come to me. I know it was geich deception. Would that the lie not smell so fragrant.
Well, look at you. Fit as a fox and twice as eager. I feel it too. Not just renewed, but improved. New talents aching for release. Don't tell me. Someone came to you. An object of desire. Made you better, more than better. Same happened to me. An old lover. Tempting as a trail of rose petals and just as fragrant. Teasing me with promises, with power, with release. I still shiver from the memory.
Your flesh shivers too as your parasites resonate. Your mind's eye shows you not your dream, but Will's. You hear the words once again. Let me come to you, I can help you. Yet it is a stranger who speaks them, a ravishing woman clad in the thinnest of silks.
I truly believed it was her, till light of day broke. Her words so sweet. Let yourself go. I couldn't say no. A danger we aren't rid of, if I'm to believe her parting words. Meantime, let's relish our good health. I'm in such fine fettle I could slay a gold dragon.
Again, I didn't even know the Will one existed, because I never talked to him first. In fact, whenever I take Will with me, he rarely ever chimes in. My impression of Will before this video was that he was by far the least interesting, fleshed out, dare I say, boring character of not just the initial 5 companions, but of all the major characters. And it's because of the game not letting me get to know Will unless I actively try to do so at the expense of the others. For a while, some were convinced you couldn't even romance Will at all, because it's even harder to trigger his camp scenes than it is Gale's. Speaking of Gale, both he and Will relented. Despite being the most good-aligned of the characters in EA, they are the most weak-willed. Astarion dreams of Cazador Azar, his old master, and a monster obsessed with control. The idea that Astarion saw someone so unpleasant when everyone else saw their deepest desires raises many questions. Does Astarion's subconscious mind long for his abuser? Or is it Cazador messing with him and interfering with the tadpole, similar to how Losa's god conversations worked in DOS 2? Shadowheart has a very similar dream to the custom character, and it's one of the rare moments early on where she tries to confide in someone, which is a big taboo for a Shar worshipper. Which brings me to the final character, Lae'zel. Up to this point, Lae'zel has been a hard ass. One note, one track mind get Yankee, especially if you didn't talk to her first in the previous camp scene, and especially now that they removed the "and you mine, though it pains me to admit it" dialogue from her character introduction. But I'd say it's a good thing they removed the latter for this scene's narrative weight. Seeing Lae'zel, hard as nails, no-nonsense warrior woman persona, break at the tadpole showing her Vlaakith is fantastic. This is a moment where everyone in the party, whether they gave in or not, feels vulnerable and hurt, even if they don't realize it in Gale's case. Which is why the player not getting these conversations, even if they want them, is such a huge problem. There are some other issues with how the companions are handled, like it being really tedious to swap characters in and out, because you have to talk to characters to dismiss someone, and then confirm you want to dismiss them, and then go talk to the person you want. The game would really benefit from a BioWare standard party selection screen. It's less immersive, but I'll take function over tedium any day, and it's not like hearing the same lines of dialogue for recruitment and dismissal over and over again. Aren't immersion breaking as well? The game choosing characters other than my character for automatic dialogue based on proximity is also frustrating, but I'm 99% sure that the kind folks at Larian have already said they'll be fixing this. In free roam banter, there are moments where the custom character will speak, and it's frustrating that they'll say something like, "Easy now, those people aren't fighters," in response to Lae'zel saying something demeaning about them, even though none of the characters I would ever roleplay would ever say something like that. And even more confusing that a line like that is in the game, considering they wanted us to play evil characters. But that's all the big things that needed changing as soon as possible. Until next time, like the video and share it around if you want these things fixed, and want them fixed as soon as possible like I do. And subscribe to the channel if you would like more BG3 critique content.